Hi guys. See, I'm a bit tired after a long day at work, but still want to try to make a video. Even if my moods don't really feel like. So I've been thinking a lot to make a video about now the economical differences and opportunities that I see as I've been in Kenya for long, and also here in Sweden, and what I can clearly see, and definitely I can see that there's definitely a much better possibility for employment here. Minimum wage is 20 times, more than 20 times is the Kenyan one. And the average salary is also at least 10 times. So and even for myself personally, it would be difficult for me to work being employed in Kenya because of some other issues, because of nationalism in Kenya, that they don't like foreigners to work. So personally, I work in Sweden now, and there's a big difference and a lot more opportunities in that way. And we pay a lot of taxes here. Like I pay more than 55% in my income, but we get a lot of things too. We get free education, free healthcare, well-maintained society, good infrastructure, and other things. In Kenya, you pay less tax, but you'll have to pay hospital bills unless you are having an insurance with your company you're working, and school fees, of course. And those are the main big issues economically. Yeah. And so that's a major thing. But there is actually a side where Kenya is far more better than Sweden, and that's in investment possibilities. And just having your money in the bank is enormous difference. And to give you some numbers, here in Sweden, we get 0 interest on the money we have in the bank. If you fix your money for like a year or so, maybe you get 0 point something %, but it's really low. And we have more than 2% in inflation, most likely 3%. It's close to 3% or more. And that means putting your money in the bank here in Sweden, you will lose value over time. You'll lose about 3% of the purchasing power. While in Kenya, putting your money in the bank, there are interests in like KCB and other banks, about 7%, which is much higher. Inflation is slightly higher in Kenya, but not so much. And if you compare the time I've been in Kenya, the last 6-7 years, if you compare the currency exchange, official figures have actually said Kenyan shillings have had more. Kenya has had more inflation, but when you put it in the exchange numbers, today you will actually get a higher value of the Kenyan shillings than the Swedish one. So maybe Sweden has more inflation than the official numbers. Maybe. But anyway, so you get 7% in a bank, and if you're in SACCOs, these are very interesting, and you'll get more. There are those who give 9, there are those who give 10, there are those who give even up to 12% interest on your money. And that's something very, very nice. So SACCO banks, that's cooperative banks, group banks, where you become a member, you're the owner of the bank, and then you put your money there in a savings account. That's really, really good. Compared to Sweden, 0 and 10%, that's quite a difference. And if you also, there are possibilities to instead of putting your money in the SACCO in an interest-bearing account, you can also put the money in the SACCO as shares. It's more difficult to remove them. If you want to sell them, it will take some time. Some SACCOs it will take half a year, 6 months, or even a year. But you'll get slightly a few more percentage in interest of the capital you put. So that's a major benefit. So many sees that interest rates on lending is very high in Kenya. So also when you lend it out to banks and cooperatives, you'll also get good money. But lending rates, yes, that's something. Sweden is better. It's a plus for Sweden. Here, when you buy a house here, interest rates are lower than inflation. Though the inflation is between 2 to 3%, you can get interest rates on the loans here for when you buy a house, you can get it for 1.5%, but you cannot lend all the money. Yeah, you cannot lend all the money. While in Kenya, interest rates are 14, 13, 12, somewhere there right now. Although they are coming down, so also the interest rates when you have savings in the bank will go down. I don't know how much, but slightly it's going down. So some years ago in Kenya, interest rate was about 25% of mortgages. So now it's down to at least 13-12%. But it's not like 1.5% like in Sweden. So that's a privilege living in Sweden and Kenya, definitely. And even if you don't have a security like an asset or a house or something, you can get interest like 4, 5, 6%, depending on your ability to pay, depending on your salary, depending on other loans you have. So you can actually take a loan in Sweden, put it in a bank in Kenya, and you will just get interest of that capital without doing much. You can do the same in Sweden. You can actually take a loan and buy stocks, and you'll get more money. More money on that the capital, more money than you're paying in interest. So there are those opportunities, although it's risky. So interest rates in Kenya actually equals somehow interest rates that you get on your savings equals what you get long term in the stock exchange if you would invest the money here in Sweden. So that's another opportunity here in Sweden. And long time you'll get like 8%, but there's a risk. It can go down 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% in a year or 2 or 3. But long term, in 10 years time, it recovers. And long term, you'll get like 8%. Yeah, while in Kenya, I'm not so sure about the stock exchanges. There you have to be more accurate in which companies you buy, but companies that are doing really well. And if you historically invested in a company like Safaricom, you would have been able to increase your capital well in Kenya. So those opportunities are there. When it comes to buying assets like houses, Sweden is very expensive. The same, actually, an apartment for a family here will buy a whole building block in Kenya. So apartments here for a whole family, like 100 square meters in Stockholm, in town, very expensive, and quite far from town too. It's quite expensive. It's maybe 300,000-400,000 euros, and 300,000-400,000 euros will buy you many apartments in the right place in Kenya. So Sweden is a developed country, so opportunities that comes with development are not here, and there are no businesses where you can take advantage of development. But in Kenya you can, and building is one, and land is one. If you buy land and buildings, there's a better possibility to get a faster return in Kenya than here. And personally, I see Swedish housing economy looks like it has gone up for quite some time, and this housing prices have increased not because of development, but because of cheap spending, cheap loans. So most likely there's a chance that the prices will not increase in the housing for some time, for like the next 5 to 10 years. You might find it goes up a bit and down and up again, so it can go down quite a lot depending on what will happen with the lending costs. While in Kenya, I don't see, partly I see prices go up because lending becomes cheaper, but not so much. The big thing is that Kenya is growing with 1 million people per year, and this new new generation, new population that is growing is more skilled, will acquire better jobs, will acquire more salaries, will acquire more purchasing power, will wish to have a better standard of living, have better houses. So the demand is really up, and it will stop one day. It will go down in price one day, but that day, how I see it, will be the time development will not be in the same speed as it's now. And right now, Kenyan economy is growing with 5 to 6%, while Swedish is growing with, like, if you look per person, it's like 1% per capita. It's like 1%. So we're growing less than inflation. That's a warning sign. It's a warning sign because if we don't have inflation, we will have negative numbers. Anyway, that's that's something out of the topic now. So land in Sweden, land is very expensive. If you buy land in towns, not really possible. You need a lot of money, and it's not easily accessible. The land that's in private hands is mostly developed. The other land is mostly owned by government. And then, unless you buy a farm and you wait like 10-20 years, you buy a farm just next to a town, and then you wait like 20 years, and that farm will no longer be farmland, or it will be valued as like a land where it can be developed and build houses. That one you'll make a lot of money. So in the last 30 years, house prices for the buildings have gone up like maybe 3, 4, 5 times depending on the place. But land has actually gone up like 30 times. So that's quite a big difference. And many times when you buy your house, you might believe it's a house that's gaining value, but mostly it's the location, it's the land that's gaining value, and that pushes the price of the house, because the house has land, or the land is part of the house. So yeah. And in Kenya, there is more opportunities, much easier to buy land, much easier to acquire land next to towns that will become town. And when it comes to farmland, you can easily buy farmland in Kenya and turn it into a farm and make it very profitable and pay back the farm, I would say, within 5 years. In Sweden, it's very expensive with farmland, and you'll not be able to pay it back unless you are extremely good at what you're doing. I've seen someone like Richard Parkins in Värmland, and he's created a Richdale farm. That one is extremely unique and profitable, but other farms here in Sweden are not. So farming is actually dying. It's something that is so many farms are going out of business compared to which ones are created. So yeah, so land is a better thing. Farmland is a better thing in Kenya, and for the last 20 years, I've seen in when you buy land next to towns, at least you'll expect to double the price of the land within 3 years' time. Some places, sometimes it has increased more, but I would say that's my observation. Yes, so. And then doing business. So if you want to invest in Sweden, you can invest. It's very easy to invest in others who do business, and you'll get some money for that investment. You can invest in companies like Tesla, Apple. You can invest in Swedish companies like like Spotify, like ABB, like Scania for building, Scania for vehicles. You can invest in Skanska for building. You can invest in so many. It's quite easy to invest money in a company that is making money, and you'll get your dividend, and you'll get your increase in the value of your shares. In Kenya, however, I see that's more difficult because of trust, and you have a stock market. Yes, but it's more difficult to find which ones are going to perform. But if you are a very skilled entrepreneur, you are very skilled in business, Kenya is the place to go, and not Sweden. Here in Sweden, it's there's a lot of bureaucracy. It's very expensive, everything. Employing people are expensive, and Sweden people are one of the top countries in the world with creating new things, new ideas. So you have to be top in the field, in the world. While in Kenya, you can take a simple business like in Sweden, and you will just make it in Kenya, and you will make it work, and you will make it work well, and you're good to go. Whether it's farming, whether it's building, whether it is shops, whether it is trading, whether it is whether it is waste management, energy, whatever. Opportunities are in Kenya so much. Kenya has a lower percentage of bureaucracy, lower percentage of taxes, and has a lot of needs. People have a lot of problems that needs to be found solutions for, and most of those solutions, you'll find them solved by companies in all kind of fields. So if we sum up, the plus for Sweden is really the salaries here, the society and what it pays, the safety net here, and that's a developed country, and loans, and that you can invest in things with quite some trust, and you can invest in businesses without doing those businesses. Negative side in Kenya and in Sweden is investments are not giving a lot of yield here, and investments are quite few now. I don't see any good opportunities here at the moment. Maybe it will come in the future. So in Kenya, okay, salaries are low, but if you have salaries, you can really invest them. You can invest in land, you can invest in businesses, you can invest in housing. You can even put them in the bank, you'll get more money. So yeah. Can you earn money in Sweden and invest them in Kenya? You will be able to create a foundation for the future, and a retirement place, definitely. And I would encourage all of you, I know there are so many Africans, so many Kenyans living abroad. Don't forget about your home place. One day you will come to miss it. One day you will come to be tired of this life here in the Western world, and you'll wish to go back to Africa, because Africa is a great place. Even if you haven't come here and planning to come here, don't forget about Africa. Don't forget about Kenya fully. Africa is a beautiful place, and it has potential. Even if you just buy a land and you just forget about it for 20 years, you have done something. And there are so many other things possible to be done. So I do encourage that, and that interaction between Europe and Africa, American Africa, the developed world and Africa. Yeah. So, yeah. Hope you learned something new. Talk to you next time.